Hi, you've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Monday. Over here in the Atlantic, we can see Igor exiting out to the northeast over here and brought hurricane force winds to Bermuda for a good portion of last night. Fortunately, damage reports out of the island do not look too extreme, and there was no loss of life, which is great news to hear. What happened is Igor got way too large for his own good. The Atlantic just cannot sustain storms of that size. The only place that can really do it is the Caribbean, where the water is very deep and warm. But when you get them out here, you start the front part of the storm up as cold water in the path of the storm center, and then the rear part of the storm cannot develop convection because it's moving over cold water, and that's what happened to Igor here. Totally messed up his core. He had no ice structure coming into the island, which caused him to weaken, and therefore it was not nearly as bad of a storm as it could have been, but it was still rough. And we can see as the storm exits now, remember when they're coming into this area, they pull west wind out of the Caribbean. You get surface divergence and sinking air in here, but now that the hurricane is leaving, you can see we have a renewed burst of trade winds coming out of the east, butting up against the old westerlies, and so we're getting convergence in here and more convection. You'll see this start to build more and eventually propagate westward into the western Caribbean during the course of the next several days. And over here in the eastern Atlantic, west of the Cape Verde Islands, we have Invest 94L, which should be a tropical depression. Looking at the ASCAT pass over here, we got a closed circulation, 25 to 30 knot winds to the north of the center, and a nice monsoonal jet coming into it, and all this stuff. Closed circulation, not sure why it's not classified, but oh well, they are just having fun and games with that over there. And this is going to be interesting with Igor to see when the sea surface temperature anomaly maps come in a few days, because he was a large hurricane moving slowly through this area. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of a cold wave he produces. If we look at the current sea surface temperature anomalies, you can see the first part of the track starting to show up now with these deep blues indicating colder than normal water. This part of the track has yet to come in, but we're going to see this whole area become quite cold when the new maps come in a few days, and this is going to play an important role in what happens during October, because when you get cold water in here, that helps focus the warm water that's left in this area of the world, and as the Cape Verde season also starts shutting down during October, that really helps focus convergence and upward motion in this area of the world, and this is where I think things are going to light up during October. And Igor is probably going to be the Cape Verde season's last hurrah, if you will. I think he's the last of the big major hurricanes to come off Africa. We may sneak in a couple more that try to get named, like 94L or a couple more, but I think Igor is the last of the real big ones, and he's going out with a bang, cooling all the water in here, and that's really going to help focus activity in the Southwest Atlantic Basin for the end game of the season. And speaking of that, over here again, looking at the European ensemble, stay 10, low pressure everywhere over here in the Southwest Atlantic Basin. Lots of stuff going on. All the models are on board with this now, with a low coming up, probably of monsoonal nature, being drawn northward into the Western Caribbean. And again, this goes along with the pattern where things are starting to get going in this part of the world. We see that the greens just keep increasing as we go here, upward motion getting even more intense. By day 15 on the GFS, we're really going to town in this area of the world over here. Even this white color showing up in the Central Caribbean, which is the max color scale on this map, and sinking air over the Pacific, focusing it over here, and the Cape Verde season starting to shut down, and things are going to start going. Now this over here is the 500 millibar anomaly setup for mid-October 1950. This is the setup for Hurricane King. It came out of the Caribbean and got drawn into Florida, and we can see the trough over the Gulf of Alaska, ridge building into the west central U.S., trough weakness over the eastern U.S., and the big negative sitting down here in the Caribbean where the storm is forming. And you can see how he got drawn northward out of the Caribbean right into Florida. And if we look over here, this is the setup in mid-October of 1999, the setup for Hurricane Irene, which got drawn up out of the Caribbean across Cuba and across Florida, up the southeast U.S. coast, and on out to sea over here. And we can see trough Gulf of Alaska, ridge in the west central U.S., trough and weakness along the eastern seaboard here, and the negative anomalies showing up in the northwest Caribbean where the storm was forming. And if we look at the 8 to 10 day European, we see the trough in the Gulf of Alaska, ridge building in the west central United States, and the weakness showing up in the eastern United States, with this sitting down here in the Caribbean as the model starts to see lowering heights and pressures and mischief going on down there. So you can see why I'm concerned. If this and this produced this and this, And then we see this over here. We start to get worried about a storm getting drawn up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico or Florida. And this goes along right with the pattern that I've been warning about as we head into October over here. And this kind of a pattern, if we really get the ridge building into the west central US, this might be a situation where we spare the western Gulf, because it's hard to get storms to come northwest towards the ridge over here when there's a weakness sitting over the eastern seaboard. That doesn't mean that folks in here should let their guard down, but if the pattern evolves like this, it's a pattern that you'd look more for a storm getting drawn north or northeast into the eastern Gulf, Florida, or the southeast US coast, which means that from New Orleans eastward would be the ones to watch this the most carefully, as well as Cuba and Mexico over here. But really this entire area of the world is at risk given the pattern, so everyone should continue to keep an eye on this situation, and it looks like we're going to start firing up some action down here by the end of the month. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.